country has ever prospered that failed to put its own interests first. We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism.
New Right Network. Mobilizing, countering the left, energizing the right. New Right Network, home of the New Right movement.
Welcome to the weekly wrap-up where two guys sit around a camera trying to figure out what just happened. My name's Bob Dunlap.
And I'm Eric Matheny, and welcome to the first show of 2020. And it hasn't been a slow news week by any means. We've got a lot to talk about. Iran.
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 How about Iran? What do you got?
Well, before we get to where we are now, we need to talk about the events that preceded this. And the one event, the real notable event that preceded this, was the attack on our embassy. And I just want to draw some comparisons here between Benghazi and what occurred the other day in Iraq. Now, a militia backed by Iran stormed our embassy. The president, within moments, was ordering that the embassy be guarded and dispatching Marines and troops to that area, whereas with Benghazi, we know what happened. Now, aside from the fact that our embassy was attacked, the mainstream media and liberals were praying to God, if they believe in one, that this was going to be Trump's Benghazi, that this was going to be a foreign policy disaster, that people were going to die, that they could use this to politicize it, to piggyback off this weak impeachment that we seem to have forgotten about entirely, hoping to gain some momentum for 2020. It did not happen. President Trump responded initially right away, and that brings us to where we are now with the counterstrike.
Well, I have to say, even some celebrities and some news people sent out said, this is Trump's Benghazi. And it's like, what? It's not even comparable. He sent help. Benghazi, they never even sent help. Even the next day, those people had to fly themselves out on their own dime and lost their security clearance. So it's a joke of a comparison.
Well, the big difference between the way that Obama and his administration handled Benghazi was Benghazi occurred 6 weeks before the 2012 election. And if you remember, Obama was running on a couple of things that were really helping him. Now, the economy was terrible, but he was running on the fact that he was the terror fighter, that he had killed bin Laden. And look, we across the board gave him credit for that. Democrat, Republican, Independent, we all applauded that, and he did the right thing. And to this day, I still give him credit for that. I don't give him credit for much. But he was running on the fact, you remember famously at the convention, he said bin Laden is dead, and everybody uproarious applause. 6 weeks before an election, this proves that we are not as safe as he's proclaiming we are. So that's why they had the whole narrative. Oh, it was a video, it was a spontaneous protest. Garbage. That was not the case. It was a planned attack. Now, same thing here. Look, even though Trump has very much eradicated ISIS, we still face threats all over the place. We're not just fighting one organization. We're not fighting Al-Qaeda or ISIS. We're fighting backed militias. We're fighting the Taliban. We're fighting this. I mean, these are people that 20 years ago were our friends, and we're fighting them now. It's kind of the same thing repeating itself over and over, which is a bigger question as why we're in the Middle East to begin with. But we're there, and we have to confront it. The bottom line is this. When attacked, when our embassy was attacked, was Trump's response proportional and right?
Yeah, it was. It's great. It makes him look like a rock star even more. I mean, the impeachment helped him. The attack on the embassy makes him look like a rock star. They can't get him, and they're really, really frustrated. And it's really sad that they wish that we were basically dead, that they wish there was deaths at the embassy.
Well, they want to politicize it any way they can, and I'm going to touch on that in a moment. But so what happened is after the embassy was stormed and we secured the embassy and we sent reinforcements, President Trump authorized a drone strike in Baghdad, Iraq, that took out the number 2 guy in all of Iran, the number 2. Now, here's another thing. The number 2 guy in Iran is a general. That's typical of a dictatorship where you have a military government. Now, our number 2 in this country is a civilian, Mike Pence. Right. But in Iran, your number 2 is the general. So that just goes to show the dictatorship that they have there, where your military is essentially running the country. So what happened is this drone strike got this guy, Qasem Soleimani, killed him, blew him to smithereens, and Iran is pissed, as I expect they would be. And Hollywood and the left, they are pissed. And you had a lot of apologists, namely what's her name? I can't even remember her
I
name.
want to say Gwen.
McGowan.
Yeah.
Yeah, McGowan. She was upset. She hasn't been famous in a long time, and she's on there, and she's Rose McGowan, and she's on Twitter apologizing to Iran and saying, we don't want this guy. We're sorry. Kind of like a Hanoi Jane for those that remember the Vietnam War. But I put something out on Twitter last night, and got a little pushback on it, but I think it's true. If 9/11 happened today, half this country would support Osama bin Laden. Am I wrong in saying that? Am I being crude? I think I'm being honest just about the state of culture right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agreed with the tweet. It was a great tweet, and I agree with that statement. I mean, look at the ladies in Congress. They're all for it. So it's screwed up.
So we took out the number 2 guy. I think it was a proportional response. Nobody wants to see us in a war in the Middle East, and especially Republicans. I mean, one of the big things that Trump ran on is perpetual war. We got to get out of there. And one of the reasons people voted for Trump is because we're looking at 30 years of failure on both sides. The Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas, just failure across the board being in this region of the world where we have no business. Well, we did oil, but we're a net exporter now. We don't need it anymore.
Right.
We're self-sufficient effectively. So we can get out of there. The problem is we're so mired in conflict over there that, predates Trump. I mean, it predates, I'm born in 81. I mean, it predates me. It's Carter effectively. So we're over there. And what we're involved in over there is an ideological conflict. And you say, you don't want to talk about religion. You don't want to talk about Islam, but you have to understand Islam to understand that part of the world. That is, we have religion here in the United States, and we are a Judeo-Christian society, and that's the basis of our laws, but we separate religion and government very well. They don't do that in a theocracy. Sharia and government are intertwined. You cannot break them up, and you have to understand the mindset. There's a very famous story. In the Barbary Wars of the early 1800s, President Thomas Jefferson apparently gave a copy of the Quran to all the sailors that were fighting over in Africa, the United States naval sailors, gave them copies of the Quran and said, read this and you'll understand why we're fighting. And that was in 1800. And you have to understand the ideological roots of Islam to understand why they live the way they do. And that's all well and good. I don't agree with that way of living. I don't think that gays should be persecuted. I think women should have equal rights. I mean, I'm sounding like a progressive right now, but I'm just speaking out against some of the tenets of Islam, which doesn't make me Islamophobic, because Islam is an idea. It's not a race. It's not an ethnicity. It is something that you choose to abide by. And the fact remains that our democracy, our Judeo-Christian Western civilization way of thinking does not comport. So we can't go over there and nation build. We can't go over there and say, hey, try the way we live. They don't know it. They don't want it. Their way of living predates American democracy by about 1,300 years.
I'm with you on that, but one of the things with Iran is, and Lindsey Graham's been bringing this up, he even tweeted it out, is if we took out their oil refineries, they'd have no money. They'd have nothing. And that's probably our next strike. If they strike us, we'll just take out the refineries, and that'd be the end of Iran.
Well, here are a couple points on the strike and where we go now. First and foremost, Donald Trump, as commander-in-chief of the military, had absolute authority to do what he did. He has no obligation to confer with Congress. And frankly, after you have guys like John Kerry, who's a private citizen now, going behind his back and negotiating with Iran on behalf of the United States, why he is not being prosecuted for that is beyond me. But the fact remains, I don't think you need to tell me that these people in Congress who have put him through this impeachment garbage for the last 3 months, he's going to go sit down, who are looking to destroy him, mind you, and politics are on their mind 100%. So you don't think if he sits down with Chuck and Nancy and all of them a week ago, they're not going to leak it? They're not going to do something to sabotage him? They would love to see Trump fail on a global scale. They would love to see him have a mission that falls apart, that they could say, oh my God, look at what he did. They pray to God, if they believe in one, that he would have a Benghazi. Of course, he's not going to tell him. He can't trust his own government. He's going to do the right thing. He's going to confer with the military. He's going to confer with his inner circle, who he trusts, because Donald Trump, look, he's a businessman. He's not a government guy. Loyalty is important. He takes people who he's worked with for years and he trusts their opinions, and he did what he had to do. We are still operating under the war on terror. This authorization was given to the president in 2002. We're still operating under it. Congress gave that authority, that use of military force, to George W. Bush. We are still in that same military theater. We haven't left. You want to talk about perpetual war? We've been there since 2002.
Yeah, I totally agree. To concur or confer with any of the Democrats of what was going down, they totally would have sabotaged him, and he knows that. I mean, it's pretty self-evident.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question about it. They were praying for Benghazi. They didn't get it. They're praying for him to fail. And if he goes and sits down with them, 48 hours, 72 hours, hell, an hour before he launches the strike, something is going to happen. They're going to sabotage him. He cannot trust him. They want to destroy him. He did the right thing. It was legal. And I think it was proportional. Now the question remains, we've just taken out Iran's number 2. They are going to strike back. They're not going to sit on this. They are saber rattling. They love it. They are a radical theocracy. They see this as some kind of crusade, religious war of, Islam versus Christianity, effectively. I mean, they've seen the war on terror or something like that. And that's what gets a lot of these radicals excited. Where do we go now?
I guess we just wait. I mean, they were already at war with us. So for the left to say, you're starting a war. I mean, they've attacked us continually for the last couple of years, or if not forever. So just wait for them to strike, and then we take out their refineries, and that's the end of Iran. That's what I would do.
Do you think we're going to engage in a ground war? Do you think it's going to be some drone strikes and then things calm down? I mean, where does it escalate, or does it not escalate?
I don't think it escalates. I don't think there's a ground war that's going to happen, although supposedly the 3,500 troops are heading that way, and I've pretty much confirmed that with people at different military facilities in North Carolina where I live. But I don't think it's going to be a ground war. Some drones, bam, over.
Well, Iraq is also going to be conferring Iraq, sovereign nation. They may decide to throw us out. What does that mean for us? I mean, we've been there a long time. What if they say, you, United States, get the hell out? And they have the right to do that.
Well, we certainly save a lot of money, but I think they like us. I mean, after we killed their number 2 guy, they were all cheering. And I don't think they like Iran. Iran is horrible to the Iraqi people. So if we can eradicate Iran out of Iraq, I think they'd love that.
Well, here's the problem. You have Iran's number 2, General Soleimani, who we killed in Baghdad. You got to wonder, why is he there? Effectively, and pundits have been talking about this for a long time, effectively, Iran has sort of taken over Iraq. Yeah. And I think you have kind of like one large, I don't want to call it a caliphate. I don't know what you'd call it, but you have basically one large entity that I think the power vacuum that has existed in Iraq has sort of been usurped by the Ayatollah, supreme leader. So we're going to have this massive enemy in the Middle East, and especially if we're kicked out of Iraq, what does that mean? Like, for the work that we've done there? I mean, we haven't stabilized the region very much. I don't know if you can, but is this just going to be breeding grounds for the next Al-Qaeda or the next ISIS and, the next September 11th that's coming in a few years? I mean, they've already proven that they can do damage here at home. I mean, is that something that we need to be concerned about?
Yeah, I would definitely be concerned about it, for sure. Yeah.
So what's the end game? Is there an end game? How do we rid ourselves of this problem, of this Middle East problem that we've been dealing with since the 1970s?
I think because of Israel, we're not going to ever pull out of that area. And Turkey's a major problem, and they got nukes. Iran's about to have nukes. Afghanistan is a cluster F. It's just, we really should just blow up everybody but Israel and move on.
Well, you know what the new liberal talking point is, and Bob, we talk about this on the show all the time. We say they had Mueller, Russia, they had racism, recession, impeachment, Ukraine. What's the next thing? World War III. Trump is starting World War III. They are going to run with this for however long they can get out of it, however much mileage they can get out of World War III. And you look on social media, it's trending. You look at all the politicians, all on the left and the media, they're blowing this, they're fear-mongering it. So I think this is their new talking point, is World War III. Now, a little while ago, there were some joint military exercises with Iran, China. Do we need to worry about, essentially like a triple alliance of North Korea, China, Iran? Do we need Russia? Do we need to worry about these enemies that we have that they're sort of like docile enemies? We're not in a hot war with them, but certainly ideological, political, with China, economic. Do we need to worry about these countries that hate us coalescing and saying, let's take out what do they call us? The great devil, or the great Satan? We're the great Satan and Israel is the little Satan.
I hate to worry because you'd be worrying about everything, but it's something in the back of my mind. I think it was Iran, Russia, and China did those joint military things. But I'm not going to worry about it. I mean, what can you do? You can't. You just try to live your life and not worry too much about anything. So.
Now, how does this fare for Trump in 2020, considering a vast majority of Americans on both sides of the aisle oppose getting involved in another Middle East war?
I don't think we're going to get in a war. I think it's just going to be a military strike, bang, bang, out. So I think it's going to be quick.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the Democrats are going to go back to the drawing board and try to figure out another article of impeachment based on this Iran conflict we're in?
I wouldn't put it past them.
I know. I was thinking about that. I'm like, okay, are they going to go back to the drawing board and impeach violation of War Powers Act, whatever bullshit they can come up with? Are they going to do that? Because the impeachment, and I really hope to God we weren't going to talk about it today, and we'll touch on it for a moment, but it's going nowhere. On Monday, they're going to make a motion to basically I hope they get a majority to do it, but they want to make a motion to dismiss the impeachment because Nancy hasn't sent it over. I mean, he was impeached, 3 weeks ago, and they still haven't sent the articles over?
Hurry! We have to impeach him quick! Hurry!
It's a national emergency.
Scam.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We could talk about that on Wednesday, whether that goes anywhere. But there's talk right now, for those who don't know, there's talk right now in the Senate that Senate Republicans may make a motion on Monday, January 6th, to dismiss the impeachment, basically because Nancy sat on them and hasn't delivered the articles. We'll see what happens. Historically, there's no precedent for this. We're in uncharted territory. So I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. I want to move on to a different story now. I want to talk about, we haven't been on for a week, and it's been a very, very busy week. And in the last week, some really horrific events have happened here at home. But one of them, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and he's a 71-year-old firearms instructor named Jack Wilson. And if you guys don't know, this is the hero at the church in White Settlement, Texas. Gentleman came in, they had eyes on him, pulls a shotgun, and Jack Wilson, in span of 6 seconds, draws his weapon, aims, fires from 50 feet, gets a headshot, kills the guy, one shot clean. Just as a shooter, as a recreational shooter, the shot, and under those circumstances, a life-threatening situation when your adrenaline's jacked, is hard. My God. That's hard enough at the range. But this man is a hero. Bob, what do you think? Has this guy proven that good guys with guns save lives?
Yes, but I'm going to go a little different way, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this. He was interviewed, and he said, yeah, we thought something was up right when he walked in the church. We had eyes on him the whole time. And I'm thinking, if that was the case, and that was me, I would have sat behind him in the pew, had my gun out, covered it, and when he stood up and I saw his shotgun, I'd say, freeze! And he wouldn't have gotten one shot off. He's a hero. I'm really glad he did it. It's horrible news for the gun-grabbing pieces of crap. But I'm just saying, if I was in that church and I was that guy, I don't think anybody would have died personally.
It's always hard to Monday morning quarterback something. We all like to think that we would do certain things in certain situations, but you have to understand that what Jack Wilson did and what makes him heroic is in the face of danger. When this man has already gotten off a shot, he's got a gun, you're in a confined space, and to have the instinct to protect and to save lives and to fight, that is something you can't be taught. There's fight and there's flight. Most of us, the physiological reaction of fear is your heart rate will jack up to like 200 beats a minute. You get guys like, everyone looks at, I'm a big UFC fan. So you see guys in the octagon and they're fighting and everyone's like, my God, are they afraid? They are, but there's your adrenaline is pumping, but there's something in your head that knows that this is a safe environment. There's a referee, there are rules. I'm not risking my life. So your adrenaline might be at, putting your heart rate at like 145 beats a minute, but you're still functional. Real fear is going to jack your heart rate up to the point where you're not functional, which is why if you've ever trained in martial arts or self-defense, a lot of self-defense is very simple movements like, fingers to the throat or eye gouges, because it's all you're going to be able to do. Remembering these complex moves, I'm going to put my head here and I'm going to put my hand here, you're not going to remember. People piss themselves, people run, people start shaking, people fall apart. And that's the that's just the way fear takes over your body. And that's the flight in us. Get away from a dangerous situation. To confront a life-threatening situation and to have the wherewithal to draw your weapon and to get a headshot. I mean, that is heroism. And the fact that we have people in this world who will put their lives on the line and put their fear aside. Because I believe that Jack Wilson was fearful. I just think that he is so well trained and he's just of a caliber of human being that he can put that fear to rest and just take action when it's needed. Laws don't save lives. You realize that the gunman in White Settlement was a convicted felon. You realize existing law, federal and state law, precluded the guy from owning or possessing a firearm, and that didn't stop him. And the police, there would have been 10, 15 dead by the time that the police came. And the guy's also using a shotgun. He's not using an AR or an AK or something with, a 30-round clip. 12-gauge shotgun. Yeah, I don't know how many rounds he's got. It just hammers the point home. We live in a dangerous world. You have to confront reality, and that's what liberals fail to do. They fail to confront reality. They fail to confront it on socialism. They fail to confront it on just about anything, and it's kind of like, well, if we build a fence around the pool, the kids won't get in. Why don't you teach the kids how to swim?
What about the fact that Biden still says churchgoers shouldn't be able to carry guns? He's an idiot. I couldn't believe he said that after the killing. Biden's
an interesting one because he's trying to run as the moderate candidate, but the problem with the Dems is that, like take Julian Castro. Julian Castro just left the race, and that's not a surprise. He was the first guy that got on the debate stage, and he opened his remarks. The very first words he spoke on a debate stage were in Spanish. And he's talking about men having periods and tampons in men's bathrooms and reproductive equality or whatever the hell that is, reproductive justice, talking about, trans women of color. And look, if you're transgender, whatever your identity is, you should be protected. But to use your national platform to push these social issues that by and large the country we're more concerned about greater issues, it's like, are you trying to get 15,000 retweets, or are you trying to win the presidency of the United States? You got to stop playing to woke Twitter. You got to play to middle America. You have to play to real folks. You're already going to win California and New York. Okay. You could take a scarecrow and put a big D on his chest and say, here's our presidential candidate, and he will win New York and California. You got to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and that's what they don't understand. That's why Trump won. But, that's sort of beside the point. But back to what you were saying on Biden, Biden's got to stick to his guns, no pun intended. He's got to appeal to the far left. He's got to appeal to the gun grabbers. And he can't come out. They can't give Trump a win on this. And I think that's why liberals were pissed. They were pissed that Benghazi didn't happen. And they were pissed that some crazy white supremacist wearing a hat like mine didn't walk in the church with an AR-15, kill 25 people, and get in a shootout with police at the end. That's what they would have wanted. Because then they could say mass violence. Look at this. No, you had a crazy person, because crazy people exist, because mental illness, crime, these are things that plague our society. And the only thing that's going to stop it, the only thing that stops evil is someone like Jack Wilson. He's an American hero. I hope Trump has him at the White House. I hope he gets all the accolades in the world.
Did you see how many people pulled out guns at the church?
Yeah, I did. If you look at the video, and the video is tough to watch. We've become desensitized because just the prevalence of videos, YouTube and Twitter and everywhere else. We see these violent videos and we become desensitized to it. But I kind of think it's important to see it because, first of all, just as a heroic moment and just as a shooter, just to watch Jack Wilson do what he did was really remarkable. But if you see that while Jack Wilson is aiming, taking a shot, you got about 5 or 6 other guys in the church that are drawing their weapons. Now, mind you, these are not just, crazy, smelly Walmart deplorables who are carrying their guns everywhere they go. That church in Texas, and if you mind you, November 2017, there was the massacre in Sutherland Springs, Texas, where a guy went into a church with an AR-15 and killed a number of people. After which, this church in White Settlement, which is outside of Fort Worth, they got a security team together, and these are guys who are trained. Again, don't just carry a gun, know how to use it. Train, go to the range. Right. This guy, Jack Wilson, was a former reserve deputy. He owns a firearm range. He's a master shooter. He was the head of their security team. Now, he's not a security guard. I know the media likes to say, oh, this guy was a security guard. No, he he was a churchgoer, he was a deacon, but it was his job as part of the church to, take care of security. So they trained for these scenarios and they knew what to do. And these guys were on point and they reacted. And let me tell you, I don't feel safe with laws. I don't feel safe with Congress, telling people what they need to do. I feel safe knowing that there are guys like Jack Wilson sitting next to me. And if God forbid I'm at a restaurant, a shopping mall, or somewhere that, and guess what? I can't shoot as well as he can, but I carry. So if something like that happens, I got your back. I'm an armed citizen and I know how to shoot. I don't think I can make a 50-foot headshot under those circumstances, but I'll do the best I can. But that's what we need. We need more good citizens, trained citizens carrying guns.
But how sad is it that we're in a state of affair where the left wished, like you said, someone like me with a red hat on comes in and shoots everybody. That's what they were wishing for. How sad is that?
We're in a sad state of affairs for a number of reasons. One of them being the fact that they want this mass violence so they can use it as a pedestal for 2020. The fact that they want Iran to fail, the fact they wanted a Benghazi, the fact that they want these horrible things. They want recession. They want bad things to happen so they can point the finger at Trump. I mean, the stock market's up. We're up Dow's over 28,000. If it drops 15 points, oh my God, the recession's coming. Oh my God, pull your money out now. This fear mongering, this culture, this climate change bullshit and impeachment. It's just like this festering wound of fear that we want to make everybody miserable and afraid. Things are good. We have problems, but we're all doing well. We just finished the year. A lot of people I know had amazing years in their business. My business had the best year it's ever had in my entire career. Things are good at home, and that doesn't fare well for the Dems. We're in a polarized culture where politics and culture go hand in hand. Everything's political. Everything's us versus them. And I think by and large, the media has helped create that, because I was talking to my wife the other night. People like Rose McGowan and people like Alyssa Milano and Piper Perabo, who have not had successful Hollywood careers since the late 90s, are reemerging as these political figures. CNN, MSNBC, it's Trump, 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 Trump. Trump has created the Trump industry. When he's gone, Alyssa Milano goes back to being that girl who was on Who's the Boss. Piper Perabo, for those that don't remember, she was in Coyote Ugly. I can't tell you anything else she did. But right now they have a platform because they're voices of the resistance, all because of Trump.
It's not a ton of people either. It's just the media magnifying these people. I mean, if you took 1,000 people off Twitter and they weren't allowed to talk on TV, and you took CNN off there and MSNBC, it's really not a lot of people. It's like the transgenders. You think, oh my God, well that's like what, 0.01% of America? But you think half of America's transgender. So they got a megaphone.
Yeah, but that's the way the culture is going right now. Is it's not catering to the reasonable person. It's catering to the most delicate among society. Look at college campuses. Right. There was an article the other day that Yale University, one of the most prestigious, oldest universities in the United States, that has produced presidents, Supreme Court justices, Fortune 500 CEOs, is now having like milk and cookies and coloring time and bounce houses. Did you see that article?
No.
Check it out. There's an article out there online that Yale University is having coloring books and like milk and cookies hour in their Memorial Union or wherever they have it. They're having bounce houses out on the quad. These are college. Man, when I was in college, like, I wasn't like coloring and like eating cookies. I was so happy to be away from home and to be on my own and to be independent. And you have these kids that just fall apart, and the teachers and the administrations are catering to it, where they're not posing any dangerous or any opposing viewpoints in classes. You could get degrees in LGBTQ dance theory. They're getting rid of Western civilization classes. They're catering to this very delicate minority, and we're not doing anybody any good that way. And that's just the way culture is right now. We're very sensitive. We're very careful about our words. I mean, watch movies from the 90s and early 2000s and think, could these get made today? Could Married with Children be a show in 2020, 2019?
Archie Bunker?
Archie Bunker? Are you kidding me? I watch those clips on YouTube all the time, man. One of the things about liberalism is they've just taken the joy out of everything. Have you ever seen a joyful liberal, like an honestly, genuinely joyful liberal? They will find something to get angry about or get offended about over everything. And I think that's symptomatic of social media. because you can put that out there. You can put your grievance, you can put your victim status out there, and you can get affirmation. And that affirmation feeds the brain and it gives you a high. Dopamine. I've been saying that for years. We are a nation of dopamine addicts.
Yeah, and like I've said before on the show, the left really doesn't have God, and the right does. So they're just mad, and I don't know what for, but I'm mad, and they're always just going to be mad until you can fill that void in your heart with Jesus Christ or God. Personally,
we're seeing that. I mean, we're seeing the effects of that now, taking prayer out of public school. And again, you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a believer, but I think some daily affirmation that there's a higher power goes a long way. It's important. And, instilling that in our children, because, by the time you're about 5 years old, you're pretty well formed as to who you are. And I think we're doing a lot of damage, and we have yet to see. But like I said, a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Student Action Summit in West Palm Beach. I saw a lot of young people, high school, college, conservatives. I think there's going to be a backlash to essentially what my generation did, the millennials, who everybody gets a trophy and, mom and dad want to be your best friend and not discipline you. And we're seeing the effects of that now. One thing I want to close on is the New York Times, that, beacon of journalism. They had an article the other day when the embassy was being stormed, and they referred to the attackers as mourners. And let's go back even further. Let's go back to the al-Baghdadi raid, where it was the Washington Post called him an austere scholar.
It's really hard to win in this war.
With this soft, delicate language to describe our enemies. What is that?
Appeasement. They want to ruin America. That's bottom line.
I agree, man. The media is in it's a strange state of affairs. I worry about what's going to come. I don't think we're in the midst of World War III. I think strife and civil unrest at home is something we need to be far more concerned about. You got to remember this. We've got a commander-in-chief right now who is fully behind the actions of the military, who has taken the gloves off, who has taken his foot off the necks of the generals and said, do what you need to do. We could have crushed ISIS back in 2012 if you had a commander-in-chief with the resolve and the willingness to do so. Instead, it went from this ragtag militia to 30 countries, 30,000 members strong, because we were in a policy of containment. If you remember with North Korea, it was strategic patience. Barack Obama fundamentally believed in his heart that America was an imperialist power and needed to take a step back on the global stage. Donald Trump doesn't believe that. He believes we're the greatest, most powerful nation on earth, the freest nation on earth, and that if faced with a conflict, we're going to confront our enemies head on. And, I wish the best. God bless the troops. God bless everybody who's going to be in harm's way. And may God have mercy on our enemies, because Donald Trump certainly does not.
We never even talked about the two people that got killed last night leaving Baghdad. A couple more terrorists got bombed.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, there was another strike last night. Yeah, we're going to see that. I mean, that's I guess if there's one benefit, and I use that term very loosely, one benefit to modern warfare is it's not massive ground armies anymore. These are specialized units, Rangers, SEAL teams, drones, a lot of, we're firing missiles from, 100 miles away. So at least I don't think we're going to have the casualties, but again, it's conflict. And, the last thing we want to do is be mired in conflict in the Middle East. But the bottom line is that we were attacked, and the message that you have to send, because the world is watching. And if they attack our embassy, after Benghazi, there should have been consequences. There should have been military action taken. And there really wasn't.
No.
It was a cover-up. Our embassy was attacked. If an embassy is attacked, we have an obligation, if only to save face in the world. And I don't mean to sound crass, but that's the way geopolitics works. And I put out a tweet the other day. It's like in prison. If you're out on the prison yard and some guy comes up and punks you and you don't fight back, even if you get your ass kicked, at least you've sent a message like, I'm not going to take shit from anybody. If you take it, then you're going to get it. And if Iraqi-backed militias or Iranian-backed militias in Iraq attack our embassy and we sit back and go, oh, we condemn it and we don't like that, even sanctions is not going to do it. We have to strike back militarily. Trump did the right thing. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy call to make, but being commander-in-chief, you got to make the tough calls. I just wish he had more support at home. I wish people could put politics aside and say, you know what? Look, if Obama would have done that, Obama did that. Obama took out bin Laden. If Trump took out bin Laden, they'd be calling him a war criminal.
Right, exactly. It's amazing.
So with that being said, Bob, anything else?
No, I'm good. Good to be back.
Great to be back. We'll be back back to our regular schedule Wednesday night. We'll be coming to you 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, back Saturdays. Got some great guests lined up over the next couple of weeks. It's going to be really exciting. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Happy New Year, and we'll talk soon.
God bless you, 2020.
You've been listening to New Right Network, mobilizing, countering, energizing. Online at newrightnetwork.com.